Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining us here this morning, a journey home meditation for the morning sit. This morning we're going to share a little bit of breathing, some meditation practices, some contemplation on some thoughts, and probably a little poetry. I'm Michael, and I am happy to be here this morning. Let's just have a few breaths before we begin. Welcome in the sound of the bell. Breathing in and release. When taking those few breaths, the practice moves beyond just pausing and goes deeper into an exploration of what it is that I'm holding in my body. And for me, the 3 breaths is a process. And so it begins with the first breath of breathing in recognizes that I'm in my body. I'm in this body. This is what is my vehicle. This is my container. My second breath recognizes the places in which I might be holding a tightness or some sort of a anticipation or anxiety. If I'm holding it in the top of my neck, I'm sort of retaining breath there, holding my breath at any moment. If I'm holding an uncomfortable amount of strain or stress, I recognize it from the first breath into the second breath, and as I breathe in, I start to focus in on those places. And I bring the breath with my thoughts to that place in my body, and it's almost like using your imagination. Your imagination is actually really a powerful tool. It's a gift. It's a wonderful thing that we have. And I use that to imagine that breath filling that place in my body. And when I breathe out, I imagine it like a balloon, just releasing its air, just coming down. And I find that conscious attention and awareness to those stuck places in my body can sometimes be enough to help release them. And then the third breath I bring in love and forgiveness. And then when I release love and forgiveness. And the question is, forgiveness of what? What do you mean forgiveness? For me, the word holds within it the meaning, forgiveness, forgiving. This is what I have to give. And I have a lot of things to give. I have a lifetime of experience of both causing pain and having pain in my life and having causes of pain affect me. I have a lifetime of experience of using the wrong words at the wrong time. I have a lifetime of experience of speaking or behaving without awareness. And my forgiveness, what I have to give, is the experience of knowing this is not the path I want to take. I don't want to continue causing harm. I'd like to reduce that harm. I'm not going to be perfect, and no one is going to be perfect in the sense that we are going to be able to move through this life without causing harm sometimes, because we all are. That's one of the natures of having this individual body in a collective state. We're going to brush up against each other. But my forgiveness in those breaths, in that final breath, is I give my understanding that I and you, that we are going to be imperfect today. And just for this breath, just for right now, I'm going to say, okay, I understand. I may lose that. I may lose that in an interaction. I may lose that when I am activated into some sort of sense of injustice occurring, or I may lose that when I am being protective of something or defensive of something. I may lose that understanding, and that's bound to happen at some point. But just for this moment, I'm breathing out love and forgiveness. And that's my practice. That's what's happening in my internal processes with 3 breaths. I just wanted to share that with you. I don't know if it's something that you want to consider, what it is that you could do in your 3 breaths, where it is in your life that you find those 3 conscious and aware breaths could start to shift from the center, right? Just a slight shift in direction. And, I've been thinking a lot lately about, pardon me, I've been thinking a lot lately about blame. Blame is something that seems to almost be like a fundamental part of our culture. It stands out to me that we blame others when we are sick. This person got me sick, that person got me sick. We blame the food that we eat when we don't feel well. I don't feel well, so it must have been this thing I ate. It must have been that. But more importantly, when there is something occurring in our communities, in our culture, in our families, that sort of overpowers our sense of cohesion. It's something that goes, that damages that sense of cohesion, that sense of togetherness. We take it very personally, and we want to find the person to blame. This happens a lot. I see it on social media all of the time. Well, the problem is you liberals. The problem is you conservatives. The problem is this. The problem is that. Well, I don't agree on the premise. I don't agree that the homelessness problem is a problem of liberal or conservative policy. I see that the homelessness problem is people don't have homes, and we need to put them into homes. That's pretty simple for me to see, that we need homes. I see that the drug problem is not the problem of drug users or maybe even drug dealers. Maybe not. Maybe the problem is that we are not understanding that this is a symptom, and we are blaming the symptom. And these are just my thoughts. I'm not dictating from the mountaintops. This is not a top-down hierarchy of ideas. But this idea of blame becomes particularly stark when it comes to people, individuals. And occasionally we have an individual who is causing harm in our society or our cultures. Our workspace maybe, or our school, your church, your social club, the bar that you're at. You might have one individual who is participating in behaviors that are a bit harmful. And then after enough time and enough of this, somebody responds. And that heightens everyone's awareness of the conflict, right? And we want to blame that person, but the blame in that case diffuses any of our collective responsibility or accountability. If we can say, well, that guy said those words and that thing, so he's the problem, he's got to go. Okay, fair enough. Maybe so. But what created the environment where that could survive for this amount of time? I think of it like yeast, or like a culture, right? Like we're talking about a culture of like kombucha. Maybe if you've made kombucha or yogurt, these are great examples. Kombucha is a great example because to make a kombucha, which is a fermented tea, you get what's called a SCOBY, and this is referred to often as the mother, right? This is the mother SCOBY. This is the place where all of the little workers that are fermenting the sugars and turning it into this really healthful product of kombucha, they sort of are birthed from this SCOBY. And SCOBYs collect over time and grow, and you separate them out, and you can spread that culture. Well, SCOBY itself stands, the SCOBY, stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, the SCOBY. And the word symbiotic is really important there. This is a balance of a thing that allows for the parameters exist to allow this to fester, this bacteria that feeds on the yeast, all of these things, the yeast that feeds on the sugar, all of this. And there's not one particular element in that kombucha that is responsible for the shift. It's a symbiotic relationship. And I think of our communities and our cultures in the same way. We are creating parameters by which our values exist. And if our parameters are as such that we allow for and accommodate harmful language, harmful thoughts, harmful behaviors, because we are unwilling to see them as symptoms of a greater problem, then how is it possible that we can only diffuse all of that by blaming one person? How is that going to change the culture? Of course, accountability is necessary. Responsibility is necessary. When someone is causing harm, yes, we have to have accountability processes. And that person is personally responsible for their behaviors, absolutely. And that person is also a part of the symbiotic culture that is housing them, creating them, cultivating them and those behaviors. So the question isn't just who do we blame, but how do we allow this to change us? How do we allow this to transform us? So when somebody is causing harm, unless I am also willing to inspect my patterns of behavior, my patterns of language, my patterns of thought, then I can't truly expect for this to have a change in the greater group. The ouster of one person doesn't truly change the culture unless we are all willing to inspect where this lives and how this is going to fester inside of us. In some relationships of violence, this looks like a person who has inflicted violence upon some people is removed, but that doesn't create the healing. It removes the threat and removes the opportunity for violence from that person to the group. But unless the group has the ability to process this together, to be able to move through the understandings of how that violence has affected them, unless there is the tools, the resources, and the space being held for healing with the people affected by this, then that violence has a really large opportunity to fester and continue its cycle. And I say this from personal experience. Children who grow up in violent homes have a larger tendency to either be more forgiving of violence in the home later in life or to perpetuate violence in the home later in life. And it's not like a cut and dry, this is what's going to happen, but this is what we see. We see that things like violence in the home is perpetuated over generations when it is not within a culture, even a microculture, that can process these things to where healing can actually take place. Healing has to be able to be a priority. And healing means wholeness. We have to be able to reincorporate the wholeness of the collective. What we see right now, what I see right now, often on social media, is the blame ends up becoming a massive amount of othering. And now we have an entire culture of people who are perpetuating their anger, their resentment, their pain, and their victimization, the thing that harmed them, back onto others. But there's not a lot of opportunities that people are saying, hey, I'm here to hold space for your anger and resentment as a way to heal it and you and me and us. I understand your anger because I feel anger too. Let's hold space for that anger so that we can tend to it, so we can take care of it, so that it doesn't become a pandemic of anger, right? And I think the feeling is that there's so much violence and anger and aggression and predation, predatory behavior in our world that I can't do anything about it. What can I do about it? What can I do about the massive amount of suffering in the world? It's so big. And some days I don't know what to do. But I have teachers who have helped. And their teachings of what have helped. And the teachings are that when you do the work to be with your own suffering in a way that holds space for it, you can sit with another and their suffering and hold space for them. And the way to learn how to be with your suffering and to hold space for your suffering is to share it, is to be vulnerable, is to take that chance. And I know how hard it is. And I know how many times we feel like we're speaking to a brick wall, or that we've had the experience of vulnerability leading to us being victimized further. People taking the opportunity to see that as a weakness, not as a strength in growing and to utilize that to cause harm. I know that that has happened. And I know that we have the ability to find and cultivate healthy relationships of compassion and love and forgiveness with one another. And it has to begin right here. And it can begin with 3 breaths. There's no magic elixir. 3 breaths isn't the cure-all for everything, but it's a beginning. It's a place to start today. It's a place that I try to remember to start. And if I start at that place, I have a far better likelihood of going in the direction that I want to go. But if you don't create space for yourself, for your feelings of suffering, your pain, your anger, your resentment, then you will have a difficult time holding joy and love and laughter in that space as well. You know, I've talked about it. I've got friends who they're really good at crying. I have one friend in particular who she is really good at crying. She has really been able to exercise that practice of being able to just cry, to just let it come with joy, with happiness, with sorrow, with sadness, with love, with fear. Finding that ability to allow that to process as crying, I think, is why she is so able to smile and laugh. I know for me, I was asked, somebody, I guess, noticed or sees me they saw me at the grocery store. They see me there a lot. I'm at the grocery store a lot. In our small little village here, the grocery store is the community center. It's where we see everyone that we know. And there's a good chance that you're not just going to get in and get out of the grocery store here. You're going to run into a few people that you know, and you're going to have 4 or 5 conversations in different sections of the grocery store with different people. And I see this person often there, and they said to me one day, they stopped me, they said, you are always smiling. And you come through here and you're always smiling. And she said, but I don't feel like it's a show. So what is it? And I said, well, I'm genuinely happy to be here, because there's always the chance that I'm not going to be here. There's always the chance that I'm not going to be able to move out of my bed, or there's always the chance that something could happen that could mean that you and I aren't here seeing each other. So I'm happy when I get to see you. But mostly, I can be happy because I know how to be sad. And I didn't always know how to be sad. I didn't always know that it was okay to be sad. It was pathologized. Oh, you're feeling sad? Are you depressed? Maybe you're depressed. There's really good medication for that. Or, maybe you need to talk to somebody about all of your problems. Like, well, yes. Would you work? Would it be okay if you and I talked? And that's a bit of a reductionist view. I understand. But my point is that culturally we are not cultivating space for sadness, or only some people get cultivated to have anger. I was rewarded for my anger in the cultures that I was a part of for a long time. Part of the anarchist culture of a particular anarchist culture in the West, and the singer of a band, and I had a radio show and all of these things, and I really mastered the cultivation of using my words and my voice for anger. I was justifiably angry. I was righteous in my anger. And I was rewarded for that. Until I realized that I wasn't just being rewarded, I was being crafted to be that, and I could not be anything but that. Any other expression was met with derision. Any other expression, an expression of forgiveness was the worst. No, no, no. What are you talking about, love cops? What are you talking about? You know, how could you possibly talk about loving your abuser? I don't know where it comes from, but I know that there's things that I needed to express that I could not. I could not find a way to express it because unless it was anger, it wasn't acceptable. But then, other people, it's the exact opposite story. How dare you express anger? Your expression of anger is an expression of ungratefulness. You are ungrateful. You need to get down on your knees and pray for forgiveness for your disgratitude. You don't have gratitude. Some people's anger is seen as a threat. You know, black men, black women, when they get angry in our culture, it's far more likely they are going to be painted in the light of being an aggressor, not just a person who is expressing injustice. And this is true. I've seen it happen dozens and dozens of times in places that think they are or believe themselves to be, champions of diversity, equity, and inclusion, will often immediately jump to language about aggressiveness when it comes to certain types of people. A person whose body looks a certain way or whose identity fits a certain category. They're not allowed to be angry. And I had to learn how to be something more than just the one thing, which was such a gift. To be able to go, you know what? I am angry and I am forgiving and I am happy and I am sad and I am in love and I am terrified and I am confident and I am insecure. Okay then. It is possible for me to be all of these things at one time. And if that's true, then it's also possible for me to have agency, which means that I can participate in the way that I feel and the way that I express consciously. I can have awareness of what's motivating my expression and then decide, is this going to bring me more pain and suffering, or is this going to relieve pain and suffering? Simple question. Is my venting to you going to be a vent? Am I going to vent my anger and let it go? Like that's what a vent is? It opens up and it allows things to pass through. Or is my conversation where I express anger with you going to be me practicing anger? And then I'm going to do the same conversation with 4 people at work. I'm going to talk about the boss in a really angry way with 4 different people at work. And each person I'm going to say, can you believe what they did? Well, let me tell you, this, and this. And then the next person, can you believe what they did? And you say the same story 2, 3, 4 times. You are not venting, you are practicing anger. And unless the person you're talking about is the person you're talking to, the chances of you resolving that situation are pretty slim to none. But that person is the one who's getting the blame to diffuse your responsibility to arrive. And I want us to arrive. I want you to arrive. I want to arrive. So, there's a poem that we have Hold on, let me just give him a second. Okay. Well, there's a couple options here for a poem that I just. I'm going to go with a poem by Kim Stafford today, and then we'll be wrapping up. Kim Stafford is the son of William Stafford. And I had the great pleasure and joy of doing some poetry readings with Kim Stafford in the early 2000s, 2003, maybe 2004 as well. And had some great conversations. William Stafford was a well-known poet for peace, a poet who spent a lot of energy appealing to the world to stop war, to end war. And Kim Stafford is fruit from the tree and a wonderful poet as well. And this is a poem by Kim Stafford. And I'm reading this from a book called The Path to Kindness, Poems of Connection and Joy. Real quick backstory on this book. I used to work at a large mental health organization, and we had a hub that I was tasked with starting in downtown Grants Pass that was meant to be sort of a drop-in hub where people could come and find respite and find resources that they needed. And I began a practice of leaving the hub each day on my lunch break just to move my body through the world to change my perspective so that I didn't stay in that one place of only seeing one thing. I would take my lunch and walk around. And one day I stopped into a shop on my walk, and it's an herb shop. It's the herb shop. And I went in there just to see if maybe they had a beverage that I could purchase, a kombucha or a ginger tea or something. And I noticed they had a small bookshelf, very small bookshelf, maybe 50 books on it. And I saw this book immediately, and I thought, that could be helpful. And I picked it up, and it's a book of poems. The Path to Kindness, Poems of Connection and Joy. And this poem is by Kim Stafford, and it's called A Chair by the Creek. Someone spoke twisted words to hurt you, control you, tarnish your name. Good thing you have this chair out under the cottonwoods where leaves swivel trouble away. A nosy neighbor shouts across the property line something about your right to be. Good thing those words were swallowed by the friendly rattle and chuckle of the creek. Settled in your chair, enchanted by moving water, your thoughts turn green, your heart fills with a slanted sunlight, whisper of aspen. You put all words of envy, anger, and greed into the sound of moving water, and listen as they float away. It's just an option. It's just an option. We have many options, some of us more options than others. But in any moment, the thing that's going to invite in your options is the breath. So let's end today with just a few more breaths. Breathing in with the sound of the bell. Well, I don't use an actual bell for these sessions because for some reason the audio of an actual bell overrides my system and it cuts out all of the other audio, something I need to figure out. So I'm using a digital bell. A pre-recorded sound is actually what it is. It's a real bell, but let's try again. Breathing in. Space of stuckness or tension in the body, a place you're holding onto something that needs to be released. Breathe in and let it go. Breathing in love and forgiveness. Love and forgiveness. Just give it away. Just give it away. If you are not sitting beside a creek with the, what is the wording that the great poet used? The friendly rattle and chuckle of the creek. If you can't give your tension, your anger, your resentment to the water, give it to the breath. Give it to the breath. It's all water anyway. Just give it away. Thanks for joining us today. Hari Om.